Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for May 9th, 2022. If you would please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Judy Hutchinson.
Here.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
Rachel Holteen.
Present.
Janice Hoppy.
Present.
Amanda Weaver.
Here.
Corey Stites.
Present.
Leah Dozeman.
Here.
Valerie Nosler-Beck.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Councilors, in your packet, you have for approval of the minutes, the April 25th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes and the May 2nd, 2022 study session notes. Councilor Hoppy, do you have a correction that you'd like to offer?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the May 2nd, 2022 study notes, it was noted that Councilperson Stites and Weaver were virtual, and they were actually present in chambers, and Councilperson Nosler-Beck was virtual.
Thank you. Are there any further corrections to the minutes? Then they'll stand as corrected. Are there any changes to the agenda? And that will stand as noted. We have several proclamations and ceremonies tonight, so I'll go to the podium. Our first proclamation is for National Police Week and National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and I would like to invite Sergeant Stephen Brooks and Detective Josie Van Veen, if they're here, to join me at the podium. Thank you for coming. This is a proclamation in support of National Police Week and National Police Officers Memorial Day. Whereas Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week of May 15 through 21 as Police Week, And whereas the members of the Wheat Ridge Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of all who work, play, and live in Wheat Ridge. And whereas the women and men of the Wheat Ridge Police Department continuously endeavor to overcome challenges and obstacles presented to them on a daily basis without pause and with courage and dedication. And whereas we honor Wheat Ridge Police Officer Alan Fisher, who sacrificed his body on the morning of May 13, 2022, when he was seriously injured while on duty, and we recognize the sacrifice made by all who are injured and die in the line of duty. And whereas it is important that everyone know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of our police department, and that our local law enforcement agency recognizes their duty to serve our community by safeguarding life and property, by providing protection against violence and disorder, and by shielding the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas since 1969, the police department of the city of Wheat Ridge has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency, which tirelessly provides a vital public service in partnership with the law-abiding members of our community. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the city of Wheat Ridge, call upon all those living and working in Wheat Ridge and upon all of our community's patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 15 through 21, 2022 as National Police Week, and observe May 15th, 2022 as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, to honor law enforcement officers, past and present, who have rendered a dedicated service to our community, and to honor those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or who have been injured in the performance of their duty. In witness thereof, this 9th day of May, 2022. Thank you. So, let me give that to you.
Thank you guys for having us. It's kind of cool to be honored in something where you're not feeling like you're on the last 2 years have been really dynamic and difficult for law enforcement. We appreciate the support, and even this year has been hard with the events in January and then last month with Alan. And I know he would really appreciate this, and he's very thankful for all the attention he's gotten, and especially when he's got a full family in law enforcement now. So thank you for the support, and we really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite David Goff, the CFO of Jefferson Center for Mental Health, to join me at the podium. Good morning, or good afternoon, actually. How are you? Set that right there if you'd like. This is a proclamation in support of Mental Health Month, May of 2022. Whereas good mental health is essential to the overall health and emotional well-being of our children, youth, adults, and families, and promotes a healthy community. And whereas 1 in 5 people in our communities experience a mental health condition each year. And whereas 8.1% of individuals in our communities experience substance use disorder each year. And whereas increased focus on the prevention of mental health conditions and substance use disorders among children and adolescents through screening and early intervention helps improve lives. And whereas the stigma against mental health conditions and substance use disorders prevents many people from accessing care. And whereas when mental health problems and substance use disorders are detected early and treated, people can recover and maintain a healthy and independent life. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge is dedicated to improving the health and well-being of its residents by ending stigma and focusing on the integrated role of mental health in all our lives. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Mental Health Month and call upon all residents, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our communities and resources to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health, providing appropriate and accessible service for all community members, and making mental health a priority. Dated this 9th day of May, 2022. And
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Starker and City Council. Jefferson Center is very grateful to the City of Wheat Ridge in recognizing May as Mental Health Month. We have a great presence in the City of Wheat Ridge right now, and we're really proud to be part of the community. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much again, Mayor Starker and City Council.
I'd like to invite Ron Clem with the Wheat Ridge Construction Services Engineering Tech to join me. Excuse me. This is a proclamation in support of National Public Works Week. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our residents' everyday lives. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operations of public works systems. Excuse me, I'm going to call on our Mayor Pro Tem to complete this assignment. Just read these proclamations.
to make sure I pick up at the correct place. So I'm going to just start from scratch. Is that okay? Okay. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our residents' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as streets and highways, traffic signals and signs, lighting, bridges, storm sewers, drainage, and fleet. And whereas the health and safety and quality of life in this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, and maintenance, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of public works officials. And whereas the 23 employees of the department, comprised of operations, construction services, maintain more than 134.9 centerline miles of streets, 36 miles of storm sewers, 9,500 street name and traffic control signs, 46 traffic signals, 350 street and pedestrian lights, 150 vehicles and pieces of large equipment, and 22 tow-behinds, manages and administers all construction work in the public right-of-way, and oversees capital improvement program maintenance projects, other related agency projects, and other critical infrastructure activities. In addition, the city's Public Works Department processes over 7,100 utility locate requests in 2021. Therefore, let it be resolved that I, Rachel Haltine, and Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week in the City of Wheat Ridge. And we call upon all community members and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works services and to recognize the contribution which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life.
On behalf of all the women and men that work for Public Works, thank you for the recognition, and best of the future is to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last proclamation tonight is Building Safety Month. And do we have somebody coming up for that? Okay. Hi, welcome. Whereas the City of Wheat Ridge recognizes that our growth and strength depend on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens, both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of the buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, including building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, design professionals, and the construction industry, who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, and federal officials that are experts in the building environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas our community benefits economically and technologically from using the international codes that are developed by national experts in their fields in a volunteer capacity, who on 3-year cycles develop the most widely adopted building safety and fire prevention codes in the world. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from natural disasters such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes, which according to a FEMA commissioned study by the National Institute of Building Sciences provide $11 in future mitigation benefits for every dollar invested. And whereas safer buildings, safer communities, safer world, the theme for Building Safety Month 2022 encourages all Americans to raise awareness about the importance of safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, and new technologies in the construction industry. Whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to acknowledge the essential service provided by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, Mayor Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, in recognition of this event, does hereby proclaim the month of May 2020 as Building Safety Month. Thank you so much.
So I want to thank the Mayor, Stark, council members, and citizens of Woodbridge for your support in the critical role that the buildings officials have in keeping the citizens safe. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Chief Murtha to the podium for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I know we have a busy agenda tonight, so I'll be brief, but I did want to take a moment to introduce our new Public Information Officer. We're pleased and privileged to have with us tonight Joanna Small, so you can put a face with a name. Joanna's sitting right over here today. Joanna comes to us from Linwood, Washington, a police department that almost perfectly mirrors the situation in Wheat Ridge. It's a suburb of Seattle, with about the same amount of officers and residents. She comes here as a former Coloradan, and she is a award-winning journalist, broadcast journalist prior to that. Across the board, highly regarded by every background and reference person that we checked with. We're very proud to have her. We look forward to her making great inroads with this community, connecting our police department to this community in a way that we haven't been able to always do, and we are looking forward to her service in the city. So I'll turn it over to her for a couple of brief comments, and we'll be on our way.
Thank you.
Got to come down a little bit there. Well, I'm Joanna, and I'm really pleased to be working here. It's been about 6 weeks in the making. It took me about that long to make the drive down from Washington to Colorado. I do consider Colorado my home. My little girl, husband, and I are relocating to the area to be closer to my family and to bring some of the skill sets I developed in Linwood here to Wheat Ridge. I was a multimedia journalist before I went to work in public affairs for police departments, and so I bring hopefully a skill set of photography and editing and to tell the police department story through that medium. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm honored to be working for the city of Wheat Ridge.
Thank you very much for coming. We look forward to having you with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to our public's right to speak, and this is an opportunity for any member of the public to come and speak on any item that is not on the agenda. We will have an opportunity to speak on most of our agenda items. And before we get, actually, I want to turn the microphone over to Councilor Weaver, who has an introduction that she would like to make.
Hi, I'm Councilmember Weaver, and this is Ivy Price. And Ivy is from Mountain Phoenix School, and she's doing her 8th grade project, and I had the opportunity to meet with her 2 weeks ago, and she was interested in women in leadership and the political environment. And I thought, well, this is awesome to be called like this, and I said, but really you should come to the city of Wheat Ridge and see all the amazing people in leadership, men and women, to understand how a city works. And so I just want to thank everybody. That, Ivy got a behind-the-scenes tour before the meeting tonight, and I hope any of you who want to introduce yourselves to her will do so. She'll be at the whole meeting tonight. Do you want to say anything?
Hi.
she pretty much said everything there is to say, so, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ivy.
Thank you very much. It's great to have you with us tonight. Okay, we will go on to our public's right to speak. Once again, this is anything that is not on the agenda, so there are a couple of items that we'll have we have a public hearing coming on a rezoning at the 32nd Avenue, and there'll be a separate time to speak on that. So if you wish to speak on that, we'll do that when it's up for the public hearing and not under public's right to speak. When I call your name, if you would please come to the podium and give us your name and your address, and if you would please spell your last name for the record, then you'll have 3 minutes to speak and address the council, and our deputy clerk will be timing you, and we have some lights, and I think the green light starts to blink when you've got about 30 seconds left, and the orange light comes on when you've got about 15 seconds, and when the red light comes on, if you would please conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is Jill Brookie, and on deck is Connie Lane.
Hi there. My name is Jill Brunke, B-R-U-N-K-E. I live at 3045 Vance Street. I might be out of line here, but because I do want to talk about an agenda in reference to the fact that I don't know if the City Council will postpone Agenda 1 due to the fact that it was not public posted on the property.
If you want to speak on agenda item number 1, we'll have that in just a moment.
Yeah, and that's why I was a little confused on that part.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, thank you very much. And I have Chris Mccune. That's quite all right. We will put you down on the first agenda item and call you for that item. So I don't have anyone else signed up to speak on public comment. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak under public comment that hasn't signed up? Or I'm going to ask if we have anyone online who, if you would online and would like to speak, you can raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting. And I'll talk to Ms. Schilling and see if anyone is raising their hand. And,
No, Mr. Mayor,
okay,
no.
and I don't see anyone here to speak, so we will close our public's right to speak. Now we are going to go to agenda item number 1. And Councilor Hoppy, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Agenda item number 1, Council Bill number 022022, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 7585 West 32nd Avenue from restricted commercial RC to planned residential development, PRD, case number WZ 2006. The applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from restricted commercial RC to planned residential development, PRD, with an approval of an outline development plan, ODP, for the development of 14 single-family attached homes at 7585 West 32nd Avenue. The zone change is compatible with surrounding land uses, provides for housing options, and encourages improvement of the underutilized property. Legal protests were received from neighboring property owners on 3 sides. As a result of the legal protest, the zone change request will require a supermajority of 6 votes or more for approval.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing, and it is quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. If you intend to speak on this matter, by doing so, you agree to tell the truth as you understand it. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation in this?
We do, Mr. Mayor. Stephanie Stevens, Senior Planner, is here this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Stephanie Stevens, and I am a planner in the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. I'm presenting case number WZ 2006, which is a request for approval of a zone change from restricted commercial to planned residential development with an outline development plan. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met. Therefore, City Council has jurisdiction to hear this case. The property is located on the north side of West 32nd Avenue, one lot east of Wadsworth Boulevard. West 32nd Avenue is a minor arterial that runs east-west through the city, while Wadsworth Boulevard is a major arterial. The site is approximately 3/4 of an acre and is vacant aside from a parking lot that was originally permitted in 2005 and was intended to be used for the neighboring property to the west. The parking lot is currently unused and is no longer associated with 3280 Wadsworth Boulevard. The property is zoned restricted commercial and has been zoned that way since the city's incorporation. Properties to the north, east, and south contain low-density residential uses and are zoned Residential 1, Residential 2, and Residential 1A. Properties to the west are zoned Planned Commercial Development, Restricted Commercial, Neighborhood Commercial, and Residential 3, and contain retail, office, and multifamily uses. Crown Hill Mortuary is located further to the southwest. The applicant is proposing to develop the site with 14 dwelling units, including 2 duplexes and 2 5-plex single-family homes. The request tonight is for the rezone to planned residential development, and the outline development plan accompanies the zone change request and establishes the zoning and development standards. The code allows for processing of ODPs and SDPs concurrently or sequentially, and the applicant has chosen the sequential 2-step option. I'll go through the ODP document and then talk about the criteria of review and staff findings. The outline development plan establishes the planned residential development zoning. The first page is the cover sheet with certification and signature blocks, as well as a character of development statement, list of permitted uses and development standards, as well as standard notes. The second page includes the conceptual layout of the property as shown on the screen here, including access, open space, and development areas. This table summarizes the development standards that are proposed in the ODP in comparison to those of the current restricted commercial zoning. The applicant has proposed single-family attached dwelling as a primary use, but also allows for single-family detached, and no accessory buildings will be permitted. Density is proposed at a rate of 20 dwelling units per acre, which is higher than what R3 allows at 12 dwelling units per acre for comparison, but less than the maximum for planned developments. Height is proposed to meet city standard for residential at a maximum of 35 feet, and architecture follows typical standards set forth in the Architectural and Site Design Manual, defers to current mixed-use codes as applicable to townhome design, including facade design and articulation and materials. In comparison, R3 does not have architectural standards. The proposed setbacks prioritize buffering the rear 5-plex from the existing residential properties to the east and commercial to the west. Bulk plane will also apply. Minimum landscaping is proposed at 30% of the total site and a maximum building coverage of 40%, which both match R3 development standards. An additional requirement of the planned residential development requires that 25% of the minimum landscape area be dedicated as private open space for yards. Parking is to be provided at a rate of 2 spaces per unit plus 3 visitor parking spaces minimum. In all other areas, the project is proposed to comply with the zoning code, including lighting, fencing, signage, and streetscape design. This is the sketch plan from page 2 of the ODP with annotations. The setbacks are shown in red and building envelopes are shown in blue. The conceptual plan shows two duplexes fronting along 32nd Avenue and 2 5-plex townhome buildings tucked behind the duplexes, oriented perpendicular to 32nd Avenue. On this screen, the access drive is shown here in pink and parking areas are shown in purple. Open space areas are shown in green. One central access point is proposed along 32nd Avenue and continues north to serve all units, with a hammerhead turnaround located behind the 2 duplexes that front along 32nd. Garages face internal to the private drive, which bisects the site. 2 parking spaces per unit are provided in tuck-under garages, in addition to 3 visitor parking spaces and bike parking located on site. A sidewalk is included around the perimeter of the site for pedestrian access and usable open space. The site is also bordered with a landscape buffer and private front yards with increased setbacks for the northern fiveplexes to provide the separation from adjacent uses, with shared open space proposed along the perimeter and rear of the property. We use several criteria to evaluate zone change requests, which includes consistency with the comprehensive plan. A full analysis of the criteria for consideration is provided in your staff report. And this image is an excerpt from the comprehensive plan, which provides guidance in terms of land use. The site is categorized along the Wadsworth primary commercial corridor within the neighborhood buffer and neighborhood designations. Per the comprehensive plan, the Wadsworth primary commercial corridor is appropriate for higher intensities and mix of uses, including multifamily uses, and calls for transition in height from the corridor to residential areas. The property is also in the neighborhood buffer, which is intended to function as a buffer between low-density residential and higher-intensity commercial corridors and uses. The proposed zone change is consistent with the neighborhood designation, and the project supports the city's stated goals of increasing options for homeownership and attracting a range of household types. It will act as a transition from the higher-intensity Wadsworth corridor. This application is found to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan by its proposed investment in the vacant site, by providing housing options, and by its compatibility with adjacent neighbors. As a requirement of the zone change process, a neighborhood meeting was held on April 28, 2020 on the Zoom format. 16 people attended the meeting, and notes from the meeting are included in the staff report. The proposal presented in April of 2020 deferred from the enclosed ODP, so the applicant held another informal neighborhood meeting in February of 2022 per staff's recommendation. One community member expressed mild opposition. Since Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, as well as completed an internal review. We did not receive concerns or objections from outside agencies. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners and residents within a 600-foot radius. In terms of public comment, we received one public comment on Wheat Ridge Speaks and one call in opposition prior to Planning Commission, as well as one in support. A few folks also spoke in opposition at the Planning Commission hearing, and leading to today, we received 2 additional calls in opposition and one comment in support on Wheat Ridge Speaks. Comments received in opposition relate to traffic, height, and density. Traffic and height are anticipated to be less intensive than the current zoning of restricted commercial that would be allowed today. Staff believes the zone change request meets the criteria. It allows for compatible and transitional land use. It complies with the comprehensive plan, and it provides opportunity for reinvestment and home ownership. It will add a variety of housing types to the city of Wheat Ridge. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request. Planning Commission provided their recommendation of approval from the March 17th public hearing. And with that, staff is recommending approval. That concludes my presentation. The applicant would also like to give a presentation, and we are both here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. If the applicant would like to come forward and make a presentation.
Good evening. I am Adam Volling. That's V as in Victor, A-H-L-I-N-G, with Pappas Architecture and Design at 3143 South Broadway, Inglewood, Colorado. Welcome to the City Council members, planning staff, and community members that are present at this afternoon. The owner for this property is Gerhardt Moral Holdings and Brent Metz. They wish to develop a project consisting of 14 townhomes on an existing vacant site along West 32nd Avenue. The intent of this project is to provide a residential development which creates an appropriate transition from commercial corridor along Wadsworth Boulevard to the residential neighborhood lying east on West 32nd Avenue. The existing site has a surface parking lot intended to serve the commercial uses along Wadsworth Boulevard. It is underutilized at this time. The retail center borders the property to the west, and the remaining site is surrounded by large mature trees. The current zone district is restricted commercial RC, which would allow for development of commercial and office uses. development of up to 75,000 square feet of commercial spaces with over 30 parking spaces with 3 to 5 stories and a 50-foot height would be allowed under the present zoning. We believe that the present RC zoning is not compatible with the surrounding R2 zone. This rezone proposes to change the current R zoning from planned residential development, PRD zoning. This PRD zone district has been created to accommodate medium-density townhome projects with 14 attached townhomes situated in 4 separate buildings. The PRD zone district requirements for the building coverage, landscape, setbacks, bulk plane requirements have been specifically tailored to be similar to the requirements of R3 zone district. This proposal providing a townhome development will allow for less traffic in and around the site, and a scale will be maintained with the surrounding low-density single-family uses. Shown are 4 new buildings with 2 sets of 2 homes facing West 32nd Avenue and 2 buildings of 5 townhomes, each towards the center of the site running to the north. A single access drive aisle from West 32nd Avenue will lead to the integrated unit parking garages at ground level, eliminating on-street parking. Site design and engineering considerations will be addressed at the specific development plan phase. All necessary infrastructure will be accommodated, including site drainage, site utilities, fire protection, snow storage and removal, and visitor parking and screening will be addressed during the SDP phase. Site and outside government agencies have been consulted and designed in accordance, and the design is in accordance with their requirements. Large setbacks are provided along the south front of the property as well as the other boundaries. Existing trees and new landscapes will help buffer the property lines surrounding the site. These setbacks will also provide residential front yards, giving the properties a nice residential scale while conforming to the bulk plane requirements. Change in zone for this property will allow for a vacant, unused lot to be transformed into a vital community with many landscaped areas, a pedestrian and visual connection to West 32nd Avenue, and a transition from the commercial occupancies on Wadsworth Boulevard to the single-family dwellings at West 32nd Avenue. A bus stop and bike lane within the property's right-of-way will be allowed pedestrians to participate in alternative forms of transportation. The architectural character of the project is intended to be reflective of the reminiscent of the traditional single-family mid-century homes in Wheat Ridge. By introducing gable-sloped roofs with asphalt shingles and brick, the project will reflect the residential single-family homes to the east. The design of the project serves as a strong transition from the residential properties to the east to the commercial properties to the west. Along the sides and rear of each building, a mix of brick, metal siding, and shingle roofs help reduce the scale of the building and add a variation to the elevations. We work closely with the City of Wheat Ridge's architectural and site design manual when designing the architectural characteristics of the development. ASDM requirements have been satisfied or exceeded where possible. 2 neighborhood meetings were held, a virtual meeting on April 28, 2022 with 16 participants, and an in-person meeting on February 17, 2022 with 5 community members present. Community concerns have been addressed as completely as possible. This project promotes connectivity, bus ridership, and bicycle transportation while providing a transition from the commercial uses on Wadsworth to the residential uses on West 32nd Avenue. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to have a public comment on this item. I have a number of people signed up to speak on this. So when I call your name, if you would please come to the podium, give us your first name, last name, an address, then you may speak on this item. And if you're on deck, would you please just sort of stand over by the podium and be ready to speak when your turn comes. So our first speaker is Jill Brunke and Sandra Talv on deck.
Spell my name again. My name is Jill Brunke, B-R-U-N-K-E. I live at 3145 Vance Street. I'm opposing this zone change for several reasons, in that a lot of it has to do with traffic and volume. I understand that there was a count of traffic 4 years ago on 32nd Avenue, and there was 6,700 trips per day, which has been 4 years ago. You put in something like this and it's increasing along with the other population increase. I don't also believe that it's compatible with the other homes in the neighborhood. Another big problem would be the overflow of the parking for those residents. You have 2 parkings per resident there. Most people have family, relatives come over, and there's no additional parking for that amount of buildings, which means that it's going to overflow onto Webster and Vance Street, which will be a big problem for us that live in that area. I also believe that the lighting is going to invade the neighbors along that building, the units that they're putting in or wanting to put in. The other thing is that they're real similar to items that have been built on 42nd and Yarrow. I think the builders were saying these are going to be affordable homes. Well, they look just like the ones on 42nd and Yarrow, and within a short period of time, several of those residents have sold for close to $200,000 over the purchase price. So my thinking is that they're going to build these, people are going to buy them and just turn around and flip them. Or they're going to turn into rentals, which means that more people are going to be staying in those units, which means more vehicles for them to drive, and there's not enough parking there. 32nd Avenue is used for a bike avenue for people. The residents that are going to be coming from the west into that unit are going to clog up the traffic there. And it's going to clog up Wadsworth even for them in order to turn a left heading north into the units, heading east on 32nd Avenue. 32nd Avenue going west for traffic is already heavy. It's going to cause a huge, huge problem with traffic. Is my light going here?
Ma'am, we are not timing on this public hearing, so I'll
okay.
ask our clerk to turn that off.
Because I'm thinking I'm
we
running out of time.
We do that on public's right to speak, but on public hearings, left we have too many people. But
Perfect.
I've got a number of speakers, so I hope everyone will be conscious of the time that we're spending.
I will.
But thank you.
The builders had mentioned about it being a buffer. The only buffer it's going to be is for the people that are, the residents that are just east of that property, for the buffer on Wadsworth. It's not going to help us elsewhere. I don't believe it's even going to matter with it being a buffer. It's not enough of a buffer. Wadsworth is already expanding and widening. So that's kind of a moot point. The other thing I want to point out is that I don't believe that there was a proper posting of this meeting at that property. I have pictures, there's no posting at all that there's a public meeting for today at that property. So I really think that it's unfortunate that a lot of other neighbors aren't here. I took a petition and I got close to 100 people opposing this. I can show you, but I don't want to make it a public record because of personal information on here. If you want to take a look at all of the signatures that I've acquired. Did you want to look at any of that?
I think at this time, no.
Okay, because there are close to 100, I would say probably 98 signatures there. As far as it being landscaped, the photos that they're showing there, a lot of that landscaping are trees that are outside of that property in other people's personal residency. What they're going to be putting in there is going to take years, even if they're going to be growing that big with the space that they're wanting to landscape. My biggest concern is the overflow, the parking, the traffic, the congestion. We're going to get more traffic cutting through our neighborhoods to get to that residence because of Wadsworth and the light and the delay of getting through. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sandra Talv and George Butkovich on deck. And while we're not timing these events, if you just want to say some comments that have been already said and just reference those, that's fine too.
Thank you. My name is Sandra Tolve, T-O-L-V-E. I live at 3190 Vance. And Jill pretty much said what I had all built up, except just one. Wheat Ridge is a beautiful city. And living here, I've been here in Wheat Ridge for 22 years. I've seen a lot of changes, and I do expect changes. But this one kind of blew me away. I work in Denver, so I see a lot of different buildings. And I see a transition from Denver that's coming into Wheat Ridge. This is my opinion. It isn't good. Like I say, I work in Denver, and Denver has changed, so not for the good with all the buildings, the different districts that I go through, just going to work. I dread that coming to Wheat Ridge. I don't object to, improvements or anything like that, but that's it. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is George Butkovich and Catherine Sader on deck.
Good evening. My name is George Butkovich, Butkovich, 7307 West 32nd Avenue. And I have been a resident of Wheat Ridge and my current place for 49 years. And I, needless to say, have stood in front of the council more than once in defense of our neighborhood. So I just presume that since the subject property is only 2 blocks away from here, everyone has had an opportunity to perhaps drive by, walk by, inspect this at some level. So we all know what we're talking about. At any rate, in the project with 14 homes, in my opinion, is nothing less than slot homes. I think slot homes in Wheat Ridge are going to be a domino effect to the point where people are being displaced from the neighborhoods at the rate of about 6 houses since this proposal was initiated. So why are we accommodating newcomers when we're displacing existing residents? Anyway, some of my issues that I have with this are it'll present conflicts with emergency services into the area, sanitation services, trash companies. How is this going to be handled? How is the noise going to be dissipated? Visitors parking. They said there's 2 or 4 places to park. The overflow then will have to be on the city streets in the neighborhoods. The strain on the sanitary sewer system. I don't know whether there's been a study on that. Can we accommodate the additional strain on the sewer? I was promised I'd see a copy of that personally, and I have not to this point. So, stormwater retention is an issue. Snow removal in the wintertime. Where's the snow going to go? Traffic congestion, obviously. No way to stop the place from being rentals, even though there's going to be sold as individual homes. what's to keep me from buying a unit and say, well, now this is an opportunity for me to make some money. I'll just flip it and we'll turn it into a rental. So I don't know. I think we've got enough rentals in the county anyway. So, and I guess in conclusion, I oppose this project. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please, we're not applauding. This isn't a concert. Our next speaker is Kathleen Sater with the Bruce Johnson on deck.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council and audience. I thank you for this opportunity to express my opinion. As a property owner...
Pardon me, ma'am, would you please introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Catherine Snyder, S-N-Y-D-E-R. And I live at 2995 Webster Street, just one block south of where this proposal is taking place.
Thank you.
As a property owner at 30th and Webster, I am very concerned about the proposal for the change of zoning at 32nd and Webster Street. Increased traffic in our neighborhood concerns me greatly. I have lived there for 35 years. I have never seen the increase in traffic that I've seen in the last 3 years in the previous 30 years. We have more traffic than you can even imagine. We have more people parking on our streets because they're there to take the bus, or they have company, or they're driving through casually and looking around. This is constantly increasing. The traffic on 32nd is constantly increasing. It was common for me to go to 32nd and Webster and be able to make a left-hand turn to get out to Wadsworth at almost any hour of the day. Now I need to go to Vance to make a left-hand turn to go west on 32nd Avenue. The increased parking needs for the number of units you are considering building here. This is at least 28 more cars. And let's say they have 1 or 2 children that drive. We're looking at upward to heaven only knows how many cars. We already have cars that are parking on the street at the north end of Webster Street. They're not the people that live there. One house is empty, the other house isn't even occupied. These are legitimate concerns that we have about traffic and parking. Even though you probably are not as familiar with this as we are, you need to be sure that you understand how many cars are going to be trying to get out of that complex onto 32nd Avenue. The increased traffic for the entire neighborhood has increased drastically since, even as I said, over the last 3 or 4 years. Have you thought about the pollution? When we talk about 28 or 32 or 46 cars, what is the pollution going to be like? You say this is good for our neighborhood? I say no. I'm sorry, it is not good for our neighborhood. This community is not interested in more high-density housing. I've heard that everywhere I go. People are talking about, oh, did you see the complex over on 29th Avenue? Well, another great big complex, going to be it's going to create lots of traffic. We have a huge complex going up just west of Wadsworth in the vicinity of about 38th or 42nd. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many people are there. This community has come before you because we are concerned. Many of us are concerned. We have 100 signatures for people who have voiced an opinion against this. We're here tonight asking you for your consideration of not increasing our community with cars, trucks, noise, all the things that go with high-density housing. I do not believe that it is really that good for any neighborhood to have. I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you cast the correct vote.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bruce Johnson and Sam Edelson on deck.
My name is Bruce Johnson, Johnnson. My wife and I live at 7300 West 33rd Avenue, just to the north and east of the proposed project. I'm a retired civil engineer, a Wheat Ridge resident for 35 years, and we've lived in this neighborhood for 20 years. I submitted written comment during the Planning Commission review, and I'm here tonight to just expand on those comments. I had asked if 32nd Avenue will remain the sole point of access for this development, or if the plan contemplates a future second access through property immediately to the north of this parcel by way of what is at present the 33rd Avenue cul-de-sac. My purpose is twofold. First, from a safety standpoint, this development as planned will be a significant traffic generator at a point less than 200 feet from the Wadsworth intersection. There could be as many as 30 to 50 left turn, ingress, egress movements at this access point per day. This, I believe, will increase the risk of traffic conflicts or crashes on 32nd Avenue. Second, I feel that a development of such density practically begs for a secondary point of access, namely from the present 33rd Avenue cul-de-sac. A developer would be highly motivated to pursue acquisition of the property directly to the north, not only to gain the desired second access, but also to develop additional high-density housing. Should this come to pass, then the development would effectively detach from the Wadsworth corridor and instead be more closely associated with our lower density neighborhood. In summary, I appreciate the owner's right to develop the parcel, and I concede that this project technically conforms to the Wadsworth corridor density criteria. But for the reasons stated above, these may not be the appropriate criteria for this parcel. Instead, the parcel may be better suited to a slightly lower density. May I suggest instead what I believe is R3 zoning, which would yield a maximum of 9 units instead of the planned 14 units. I therefore ask that the council take such action as necessary to scale back this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sam Edelson and Adam Volling on deck. Thank you very much. We'll cross you off the list. Thank you. Okay. Then we have Renee Bergstrom next and Nova Metz on deck.
Hello, my name is Renee Bergstrom, Bergstrom. I live at 3025 Vance Street in Wheat Ridge. And I was just thinking about that. I've actually lived here for 20 years now. And it is a city that I have grown to love. It is exactly the city I wanted to move to. and it's growing and flourishing to this day, which is wonderful. The last time I was here was actually for the development of the Stride Healthcare Center across the street. And I was very impressed with the process and how the City Council did listen to our concerns. And I think the development ended up to be a great use of property for Wheat Ridge. So I thank you for that. And I'm hoping that you're going to think and listen to everything we have to say with regards to this property. One of the reasons I chose the house in Wheat Ridge when my realtor wanted me to move to Highlands Ranch was because when we turned down the street, the variety of trees that greeted you as you drove down, as you walked down, was incredible. It's a beautiful place to live. And as 32nd has become a main cyclist route, and as there have been signs put up to have people walk down our street to get to this park here, it has become a really thriving neighborhood. This neighborhood we live in used to be kind of the annex of Wheat Ridge. When people talked about it, when I talked to people about it where I lived, they would say, oh yes, you're that other part of Wheat Ridge. We didn't really fit the mold, but it's a beautiful part of Wheat Ridge. And what I've discovered, because of the decisions you made with regards to the Stride building and not having it go become a throughway, so you have to go back onto Wadsworth versus having them come through Vance to the property. One of the main reasons that was done was because of irrigation issues with regard to Wheat Ridge. The other reason was, I think, because of my plea, because there were so many young families moving in and because of the walkability of Wheat Ridge. We want to be that kind of city. We want people to walk to these great neighborhood local businesses, yet we don't have full sidewalks, so people are walking on the street. If you have this development go in, 14 units that don't have full backyards, they will be walking down Vance Street and enjoying my trees. I know they will. It's beautiful. It will be noisy, and they will not appreciate trying to get back onto 32nd Avenue. That is how I get my kids to school every day. If there is someone who wants to get into the parking lot for that commercial building off of Wadsworth and 32nd, and we're all at the light, it becomes chaos. Because some people want to back up and let them in, but yet there are 3 rows of traffic. I'm not sure how everyone's going to get to work out of that one entrance onto 32nd from those 14 units. I envision a traffic flow issue that everyone spoke of. Also, at that intersection of 32nd and Wadsworth, it floods almost every time it rains. And behind the unit, the property that you're planning on building on, there, I do see some kind of irrigation system on someone else's property. So my concern is what's going to happen with that delicate balance that we haven't quite achieved yet in this area with all of those units going in and all that building and the soil movement. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I have a feeling it's going to impact our soil and our neighborhood. I didn't know I was going to be coming up, so I was going to rearrange my notes. So let me just make sure I hit everything. So traffic flow, I don't see how that's even possible to have one entrance. 2 entrances would be great. I was surprised that there would be 14 units. That last slide that you showed, I do not believe is to scale because I've driven by and walked that area, and the house on that, the corner that's now vacant, that parking lot next to it is maybe the same size, I think. I don't know how you would fit 2 duplexes into that area. There is a bus stop there. If a police patrol car is sitting there, as they often do, there's maybe like 2 or 3 lengths of police car that could be ready to get out of there. And I just don't know how you could get that many people and units and cars in there and get them out safely. So those are my thoughts. And I hope you will consider them and all of the thoughts of the neighborhood, because I do believe that you're doing a wonderful job. I think Wheat Ridge is growing, and there was a point where people didn't want to build here. And so I appreciate all the efforts you guys have done with the property, with your department. I think it's wonderful. And I do commend the young architects that want to build and create this thriving city. I just don't think that parcel is suited for that style. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nora Metz and Connie Lane on deck.
Hey, Nora Metz. I live at 5940 West 37th Place, and I am speaking in support of this project. I am a 33-year-old nurse practitioner. I've been renting a room here in Wheat Ridge for my sister and her family for some time in order to save money for a down payment on my first home. I really enjoy living in this beautiful, vibrant city. Both my brother and my sister live here in town, and I would love to continue living here near my family. As a well-educated and healthcare professional, I have a good job, stable income, but also student debt, as many do. I know that many in this room are lucky to have purchased their homes 20 or even 30 years ago. I've been searching for some time now, and it appears that all the available housing options are either well out of my price range or, would need a lot of work. So I believe that a project such as this would provide an opportunity for young professionals looking to purchase their first home in a safe, wonderful neighborhood such as this. And I ask you to support this project as it would provide an opportunity for young, hardworking professionals who deserve the opportunity to purchase a reasonably priced home in this challenging housing market.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Connie Lane, and I have Chris Mccune on deck.
Good evening. My name is Connie Lane, L-A-N-E. I live at 3200 Vance Street. Mayor and council members, thank you for your time and letting us chime in on this project. I live one block east of this project, and I echo many of my fellow community members in opposing this. Not that I oppose development. You all have found a really great parcel that has sat empty for a long time, and we welcome new neighbors. The medium density of which council spoke to this in the recommendation, I do believe is not true. Medium density, 14 units is high density for that specific parcel. I really appreciate what Bruce said in terms of a second access point. I live on that corner. I have for 10 years, and lovely neighbors of Chris and Ruth's farm. I've seen the growth along 32nd Street because I live on the corner. And the traffic on 32nd is, I echo everybody, so I'm not going to belabor on that. One of the things I do want to talk about in terms of impact of traffic is safety, public safety. I'm a dog walker. I walk my dog to Crown Hill Park. It's a beauty, and the cemetery. I discovered the cemetery during COVID times as a place to walk my dog amongst the dead bones and the dead trees and this horrible time that we've been living through. The safety of walking along 32nd with the dog on that north side of the street will be impacted incredibly, not in our favor. Yeah, I can cross the street. Yeah, I can go different routes and stuff, but I'm concerned about the public safety of those of us that use 32nd, whether as a bicyclist or a pedestrian. Not only that, I'm concerned about the 50-foot height being 1 block away of the privacy of our streets. Yes, there's trees. Yes, and times will growth. But I'm really concerned about neighbors having views of our street on Vance Street, not to mention the overflow parking being one of the first streets 100 feet just east of that property. They're going to be coming and parking in my front yard. So I welcome short-term neighbors, but to me, it's not a medium-density property. It is a high-density property for that piece. I think 14 units is too excessive. I do believe that 3 parking spots for 14 units is ridiculous in terms of the amount of people that want to come to this beautiful place and visit their friends and family when they're here. So I'm going to end my comments there. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Mccune, and I don't know if Elizabeth Mccune wished to speak also, but I have her on the list.
I think she does. But
Then you're on deck.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing us tonight. I mean, I know we triggered this by sending in a petition, but still, thank you for listening to us. It is important to know that we're being heard, and we ask that you carefully consider what we're having.
Before
to
you
say.
get too far
Sorry,
into
I'm
it, would you
Chris
please
McCune.
introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry. I'm Chris McCune. I live at 7395 West 32nd Weir Roost Farms. I live a block from this project. And I also want to say a big shout out to Mountain Phoenix 8th grader sitting here listening to all this. We've had 4 kids go to Mountain Phoenix, 3 of which have graduated. 1 we hope will. And then I've had 1 kid who just graduated from Wheat Ridge High School and 2 more there, 1 more to go. And I'll come back to traffic, but I send teenagers down this road every day. And, I know it can be a little overly dramatic, but I work in the front yard of that property every day. I probably spend the most time in front of that space of anyone here. I have walked by, seen the lot that we've been shown maybe 5 million times. Traffic routinely backs up on 32nd in the morning and in the afternoon. That's probably related to school. This proposed entry point, which, I don't know, somebody said 200 feet. It doesn't feel like 200 feet to me from where you hit the stop walk sign to go across Wadsworth from where this will be. They're already backed up past our house in the morning. So, 14 units, how many ever cars there are there, coming in and out how many ever times. I mean, I have to go to Home Depot 10 times every day. Safeway 20 times, it feels like. These people are probably as absent-minded as me. They're going to be coming in and out all the time. I have no idea how that's ever realistically going to work. There's been some mention about the previous meetings that happened, and it's like, hey, 16 people showed up for this. 1 comment was made. It's hard as a citizen sometimes to understand, like, the process of bureaucracy. I promise you, I know of no near neighbor to this project who's in favor of it. Every single person that I know, that I've spoken to, they're not all here tonight, 100 people signed a petition. Every single person I know in a 5-block radius does not want this particular development. I'm sympathetic about how much it costs to live here. It's insane. I have no idea where my kids will live. They're never going to be able to afford to live here. And sensible development in the right space makes so much sense to me. And that's basically what I'm here to say is, can we have some common sense about this? We were shown a map that talks about the buffer zone, right? The high density thing around Wadsworth. This is the most shallow slice of that place. We're talking about half a block. We got like half a block with commercial property, and then we have a half a block that's been empty for basically forever, and then the other half is 1 house. I mean, we might want the corridor along Wadsworth to have higher density, but this is not an ideal spot for that to happen. We're talking about like half a block. And if you have any doubt about how a lot of the people that are near proximity to this feel about it, nearly all the adjacent properties to this development are for sale. They've all gone up for sale, like this. Why? Because they know the moment this goes in, their house, they're going to try to sell it. It's not going to be of the same value because people are going to instinctively perceive, they're like, wow, look at all these units in this space. I want to come back to something I said about like the previous meetings. Maybe people didn't go, maybe people weren't informed, but honestly, nobody that lived around there who walked by this, drove by this, noticed this place, ever thought 14 houses were going to go in there. You say R1, R2. If you walk around the neighborhood, it's mostly single homes, some duplexes, right? And then a couple exceptions to that. This feels so out of character with how most of us understand our neighborhood to be. So it's just like shocking, like what? 14 of those things are going to go in there? We keep talking about like, hey, 3 visitor parking spaces. I mean, come on. There's 14 houses. You can't park on 32nd. So what are you going to do? You can park on Vance or Webster. Many of these people are here tonight. because they know what that's like, having all these people park in front of there. What hasn't been mentioned is, what about the commercial properties? You know, the Sicilian Bakery, the mortuary places that are right there. That relatively small parking lot often fills up with people getting cookies and bread and everything else. That's where I'm parking if I'm coming to visit my friend that lives in the new development, like right next door. Those businesses, I mean, they're not here, so I don't know exactly how they feel about it, but people aren't going to be able to park there for the business because the guests, the friends, whoever are going to be filling up all those spots. So I've talked for a long time. I'm pleading for common sense. Just to think about, hey, what would this be like if this got plopped like a block or two from where you live? The property could be developed. Please not like this. Please not 14 units. Like all these cars, all these people. My teenagers that are trying to get out of my driveway, which is just on the other side of Connie, which is just before George. I mean, we gotta wait in the morning. And people are not great about people turning, like we have to turn into our properties. People don't wanna slow down, they ride you. What's gonna happen now when everybody's like, oh, I have to race to get to that light because this whole thing just got jacked up by another 14 homes with how many of our cars that ends up to be. So thanks for listening. We do appreciate it. We feel heard, and it's good for us to come and bring out all these issues. So thank you.
Thank you. I have Elizabeth Mccune next.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mccune. I live at 7395 West 32nd Street. That's a hard act to follow. Of course, I agree with everything that Chris has said, but I will say that when I hear affordable housing, there's something that really speaks to me about, gosh, affordable housing and the young woman who spoke, that what that is to feel like you cannot buy a place. And any of us who have owned our houses for 10 years or more probably feel like we're really lucky to have gotten our house when we got it. I'm in that same place. I am really curious what affordable housing means. Is there a definition that goes with it? Or is that a marketing term that you can just say, oh, it's affordable housing, and then a city council will say, stamp, you know, because that does pull on my heartstrings, and I would hope you as citizens of this city that pulls on your heartstrings too, but I just want to understand if it's affordable housing, there's truly a definition, and it really gives access to people who might not otherwise be able to afford a house. I can make sacrifices about having to look out and see a block of 5 condos that I'm not excited about looking at, but I'm also excited for people to be in homes. That said, I also look at that space, and I think we heard it was like 3/4 of an acre, and it was around 3/4 of an acre. So we have 1.1. That space looks about half of what we have. So I'm really surprised to hear it's 3/4 of an acre. Probably, I'm just guessing, the average Wheat Ridge home around here has an 8,000 to 10,000 foot yard. We have bigger yards than in Denver. Imagine if you have a 10,000 foot yard, you're gonna put 5 homes on your 10,000 foot yard. My guess is if you all look at your 10,000 square foot yard and think I'm sticking 5 homes here, you might say, that makes no sense. And so Chris and I didn't talk about it, but the thing I wrote is, are we done with the age of common sense? I really liked what Bruce had to say. You know, you compared this new zoning to commercial zoning, and you kept saying, well, it could be, or maybe it was you, it could be a 75,000 square foot building, and yes, it could be worse. The reality is, no business is coming in to that space because the traffic is so bad, you know? So it's easy to compare that. That's a straw man argument, to say it's better than having a commercial building. But what we're asking some of us for is not to be against development, but common sense of, could it be R3? Could it be fewer homes? And seriously, and then just the concept of how many accidents we are going to have. We have all heard the crashes from our yards of cars at Wadsworth intersection. And just trying to make a right turn or go straight on 32nd across Wadsworth, and one car wanting to come out of Dulce Cecilia, everyone starts wondering, do I back up? And they back into their neighbor. Is just not enough prep time to get turned. And then if you are heading north on Wadsworth and you have that like 50-foot, I don't even know if it's that, offset to try and turn right onto Wadsworth, and then people are on your tail because of that, because only one car can get over to turn right on 32nd, and then you have to make a quick left. I just think you'll probably have the police out there once a week with fender benders, tailgating. I would, and that's where I would love to hear the city planner or whoever, like you speak to, you just kind of made an offhand remark like traffic, we've done a traffic study, and so we approve. But I think we who live there and drive through the intersections every day can attest to the near misses and the actual accidents that we've witnessed. So I would really appreciate hearing thoughts from that traffic study and how well done it was. So my questions are about what's the definition of affordable housing, and can we hear more about this traffic study? Thank you.
Thank you. I have no more people signed up to speak on this. I do want to accommodate anyone of our residents who may be joining us in the Zoom format, and if you would like to speak on this item, now is an opportunity for you to raise your hand in the Zoom format, and we will bring you into the meeting. I'll go to Ms. Schilling and see if anyone has raised their hand, or if there's anyone here that hasn't signed up that would like to speak. Now you may also speak. If you would like to speak, please come to the podium, and we will bring you in just a moment. Ms. Schilling, do we have anyone online with their hand raised?
We have one hand raised. It's Micah Strom.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Micah Strom.
Okay, Micah Strom, if you would please unmute yourself and introduce yourself, first name, last name, and your address, please.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great, thank you. My name is Micah Strom, S-T-R-O-M, and I live at 3120 Webster Street. And I'll just, kind of piggyback on what everyone else has said. I'm more than excited to welcome new neighbors to the neighborhood. I've been here 6 years, and this is just a truly great place to live. I am, however, concerned about the parking, the density of the building, as other people have said, and the traffic. So those are my main concerns. Again, I'm all for development, but does it have to be 14 units? Could it be 3? So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schilling, do we have additional speakers?
Yes, we do. Margie Robinson.
Okay, Margie Robinson, if you would please unmute and introduce yourself, then you may speak.
Hi, I'm Margie Robinson. I live at 4 Hillside Drive, and I'm speaking in support of a little bit more affordable housing in Wheat Ridge. This seems like a good parcel for making some low-income homes available. Like our a previous speaker who's well-educated, employed, she still can't afford to buy in Wheat Ridge. And I think this is a great opportunity to make housing affordable to people in that category. They're our workers at Sprouts, our new teachers, they can't afford to live here. I do sympathize with the people and the traffic issues, and like Elizabeth Mccune, I think we need to take a close look at that traffic study, because the people who are going to be impacted most are the people that live there. But if there's any way we can take a small unused parcel like this and make it available at an affordable level for more people, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schilling, do we have additional online speakers?
No, Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay, we have another speaker in the House. If you would please introduce yourself, give us an address. You may go ahead.
My name is Annette Tenorio, Tenorio, and I live at 3050 Webster Street. I'm 4 houses from the property on 32nd, and I'd like to speak real briefly on not only density, affordable housing, but also in comparison to the other developments that are happening in Wheat Ridge right now. I have lived in my house for 20 years, and the parking lot has mostly been used as police sitting there, hanging out, waiting for things to happen, right? Not a lot of usage. When they changed that into a parking lot, it was exciting because we thought, oh, something's gonna happen here. Just a parking lot. We've had on our block in the last year, stolen cars on our block that have been ditched and just parked on our block. We have people that park on 32nd that wait for the bus. And so I feel like with 14 homes there, the overflow is not going to be appropriate. We're going to have more and more cars on our block, and it's just going to overflow. So of course there's parking issues. We have a driveway, we have a garage. However, those cars come closer and closer to our house from 32nd Avenue, and that's a problem. My question for the developers are, they said that this was a transition area from 32nd into the neighborhood. There are no 3-story properties that are houses in our neighborhood. In the surrounding homes on Webster, Vance, 32nd, 33rd, most of them are single-family, 1-story homes. So a 3-story with a rooftop, which looks like in the drawings, there's rooftop patios or something on the top. Totally different vibe. I was priced out of North Denver 20 years ago. I couldn't afford to stay there with my family. And so I've raised my kids here, and now we have houses on the corner selling for $900,000 on the corner of on the corner of Vance and 32nd. I can't even imagine what affordable housing would look like in these condos when you look at the housing that's happening on 29th and Kendall. I looked up on Realtor and Zillow, and there are, number one, at least 40 homes going in there, attached homes, and it looks like maybe some detached homes. The lowest price that's listed online is about $586, and the highest price that I found was $790 something for that area. That is not affordable housing for an attached property in the city of Wheat Ridge. And so that's a real concern for me. My kids are both young adults. My daughter could not stay living in this community because there was not affordable housing. She had to move way up north to Westminster in order to afford a condominium. So when we look at a place for my son to live, this is not the community that he's going to even be able to afford an apartment when the condominiums are renting for $1,600 on 38th and by Safeway. And so this is not what affordable housing should look like. The density is too much. If we had a quarter of that or even half that, that might be acceptable, but it's too much for our neighborhood, and it definitely doesn't match architecturally, and it doesn't match the density. There's no 3-story housing. There's no 3 stories on Wadsworth that match this property on either side in residential. So I'm definitely in opposition of this, having lived in the community for so long. There are other things that we can do, other lots that we could develop as a community. There's so many places on 38th that could be developed that have sat empty for more than 10 years. So that is my concern.
Thank you. I'll do one last call for public comment on this. Ms. Schilling, is there anyone online that's raised their hand to speak? You may do so now, or anyone here in the City Hall that hasn't signed that would like to speak, you may do so now. If you'd please come towards the podium. Ms. Schilling, anybody else? No one online, so I have another speaker coming to the podium. If you would please introduce yourself and give us your address.
Christopher White, 2955 Webster Street. The neighborhood's pretty much covered all the traffic concerns. I live right behind the medical building you guys built. And you guys built it, and my well is overflowed from all the water that comes down and it floods in my backyard over a foot of water. This last winter, now it's collapsed. So whoever the developers are, and they're trying to stuff something in there, I know a lot of water is gonna go someplace, and I don't know if anybody's properties over there have the same problem I do, but I called a well digger, he wants 2,800 for 80 feet. I don't know if I can get the state to give it to me. I'm gonna fight like hell for it, because I had this, and they watered my grass, and we've had it for a very long time. And the water rights came with the house. But these are the problems. You know, we showed up when the first development wanted to go in there and they wanted to get rid of old oranges. That whole development wasn't a bad idea. The density of what you're asking to do, I think, is what everybody's been complaining about. I hope you hear us. Some of us do have problems. Some of us just pay. We don't come knock on the door and say, hey, I need my well pumped out again. Now it's collapsed. Now I got a big bill. So I need a new pump. I need, you know, just, these are the things that us citizens, I do appreciate y'all opening up the floor to us, by the way. I do.
Thank you.
All right? But these are the things that concern us, and it's not always the easy stuff. It's the stuff that happens after the matter. Is there a back door open where we can get something fixed when they develop a place like this? Is there money available for things like that when it happens to the neighborhood? Hasn't been my case. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll make one more call for anyone here or anyone online that wishes to speak on this item. Okay, we're going to close our public comment on this. We will open this up for questions from council. Mr. Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question. We've heard affordable housing a few times tonight. And I know in the notes, it looks like they're looking to start at about 300,000. Is there a guarantee to that? Is that going to be deed restricted? A couple of the commenters had kind of brought up what happens after they buy the house. Can they turn around and flip it for whatever they want? How does that work?
Hi, this is Sam Edelson. I'm with the development group. Edelson is Edelson, and I live at 1358 Gilpin Street. Can
you speak up into the microphone?
Yep. Can you guys hear better now?
That's better.
Hi. Yep. So Sam Edelson. I'm with the developer group. My last name is spelled Edelson, and I live at 1358 Gilpin Street in Denver. You know, I've been at all these meetings, and so I'm, I guess, pretty familiar with the dialogue around this, and I've been pretty consistent in talking about an attainable pricing price point for this housing. You know, my focus has always been on trying to increase the number of houses in an area so that more people can join communities, and also so that the people who work in communities can actually live in them, and that means density. And so when we talk about a price point, we build market rate housing, and we try to cater to a price point that people in the market can afford. That's the product. It's not deed restricted. We hope, you know, someone mentioned someone might make money in the future on this by selling their home at a profit. I hope that's the case. You know, townhouses are often the first step that people can get onto the housing ladder. We started off this meeting, which I was really grateful for, you know, honoring our policemen, mental health workers, and also, you know, civil servants doing construction here. These wages cannot afford to live in Wheat Ridge based on what I see in single-family homes. Before I came here today, I was looking through what's available in Wheat Ridge for a single-family home. And I was really hard-pressed to find anything under $700,000. There was a 500-square-foot tiny house on the market for $499,000. We build market-rate housing. I think we will put it out at a price point that is attainable for people, but I don't expect it to be deed restricted. And frankly, you know, the reality is that, and I've seen this happen in Denver too, the longer time passes to allow us to build, the more prices go up. You know, I've been surprised this year in other developments that we're building with 20% increases in the cost to build, right? If we had been able to build it sooner, we could have put it at a lower price point. But we are subject to the market like everybody else. And when I get budgets back that are 20% more, when it takes me, 2 years to get a permit on things and I carry that interest cost, these are the costs that go into building houses. It's interest, it's bricks, it's wood. All these prices are going up, and frankly, I'd like to get the product out sooner rather than later so that I can stop accruing costs and start building for people.
Ms. Hoppy?
Well, I was going to ask one more question,
Oh.
if that's okay. And maybe this is more for Stephanie. As it's zoned right now, restricted commercial, there's been very little to no interest in the building or in the property?
Yes, very little to no interest. It's been zone restricted commercial since we incorporated. No development except for the parking lot in 2005. But since I've been here in the last 3 years, we've had one pre-application meeting. It was for an indoor recreation facility that never came to fruition.
Thank you.
Ms. Hoppy?
Thank you. I just would like to note where people are coming with the attainable housing prices. It was part of the comments from the listing agent for this property from the neighborhood meeting on April 28th, saying it'd be a high 300 price point. Being that you build market rate homes, do we feel like that is the current market? Or is that, I personally have looked around also at what we have in our community. And I can tell you there's a home on my block that's for sale that was purchased in 2005 for $273K. It just hit the market for $926. So, and it's a 3-bedroom house. And we need diversity in our housing market so we can have diversity in our communities. And so I just want to push this point just a little bit more and thank you, Councilmember Stites, for asking that. Do you think that comment that was made by the listing agent on the 28th of April, do you feel like at this point that is still a reasonable price point that you'd be able to reach?
And was that 28th of April in 21 or 22?
Oh,
2020.
you're right. That was 2020. So what do you think it would be then? In 2020, it was upper 300s.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and frankly, whatever it is today, it probably won't be when we finish building it.
Sure.
And I know this is going to sound crazy, but my lumber packs on our budgets have been massively volatile, right? So lumber prices have doubled, and I think that's partially pandemic driven.
Mhm.
And my hope is that lumber prices will ameliorate by the time that we go to build here. So it's very difficult for me to actually tell you what things are going to be priced at, but I think, I'll tell you this, right? Over the last year, building costs probably went up 20%, and that's just the cost. So I would think, if apples to apples,
Mhm.
it's probably, 20% higher. And that was in 2020. And so, the reality is that, like I said, we don't get subsidized, right? We put our capital at risk and, try to build frankly, the reason I got into housing was to actually, try to create more housing for people. And so, we'll put out the product at what we can put the product out at, but I don't know what my building costs are right now, as crazy as that sounds. I'm building into a black box.
Thank you. And then, Stephanie, can I ask you, some people have mentioned, like, if we would zone it to R3, it's my understanding that R3, the bulk plan for R3 only applies if it's a single-family home in R3. Therefore, if it was zoned to R3, the bulk plan would not apply, and they would be able to build to the highest standard, which is 35 feet, without the step backs and encroachments. Is that correct?
So it would still apply, but it applies to the entire property overall. So it's like looking at a house over the building footprint, and that's where all of the houses would have to fit into.
Okay, but it wouldn't apply as the way it's been applied in this, in the planned development that you guys.
It would be the same type of bulk plane. Yeah, I mean, it's the same way to calculate it, correct, is what they are proposing.
So I guess I'm misunderstanding the memo, because in the memo, it clearly calls out that if this was R3, that bulk plane and it was in see if I can find it. If this was R3, that the bulk plan would only apply if it was a single-family home, and that was in parentheses in here, meaning that there would be no bulk plan if it was zoned R3.
So
And
if
they
it
were
was a
building multiple
multifamily
buildings.
product, yes, it would be a different application. So they are going above by adding the bulk plan standard.
Okay, so yeah, so it
Yes,
wouldn't
I
apply
apologize.
to.
Yeah, that was
okay.
my
Thank
bad.
you, I'm sorry that. And then with the, if it were, zoned another way, this way we are gaining larger rear setbacks than if it were zoned R3, is that correct?
Yes, well, 15-foot rear setback also applies to R3. Where you gain a little bit extra is next to the fiveplexes on the side setback. Those are proposed at 20 foot, so on the east and west sides.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So during the presentation by the developer, it was indicated that they addressed as many community concerns as feasibly possible. However, I was surprised to read in our packet that the development was originally proposed for 11 units, and then it was increased to 14. And having read through it, there was an explanation presented to the Planning Commission, but if somebody could speak to that decision, and especially after hearing feedback from the community that it was too dense, why the choice was to increase the density as opposed to either leave it or lower it.
So I'll respond to that. So again, all of this goes back to trying to create a product that fits a price point, right? And the reality is that the more units that can be on a given piece of property, the more affordable it is to build that unit. That's just how the math works. And so what we did, well, first of all, we can, very easily look to the fact that with the run-up in costs, right, like this project got a lot more expensive over this period of time. But additionally, look, and again, this might be more, philosophical, but, I really believe that the way to moderate the affordability crisis and supply crisis that we have in housing is to add more supply. And so we looked to City of Wheat Ridge standards, right? We looked at what was laid out for this corridor, right? What would be allowed, and we designed to what was allowed. And frankly, that helped us lower the cost per unit, and I think that's going to help, hopefully the buyers of these units.
And as for a follow-up question, I think that this is more directed at staff. Why was it proposed or recommended for PRD as opposed to R3 if the standards are relatively similar?
So that was because of the position so close to Wadsworth, mostly. So being a transition zone from the comprehensive plan direction, going from restricted commercial, it's really about what is most fitting for the site being a transition next to Wadsworth. So letting them move forward with the proposal that they wanted to do still fit with the comprehensive plan designation, so it was evaluated as such and fits the code under that standard. R3 zoning would allow for up to 8 dwelling units maximum, just for comparison.
Councilor Nosler-Beck, did I see your hand? Okay. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. My first question is in regards to the definition of medium and high density. That's come up a couple times. Is there any particular definition that is widely used, or is it more subjective?
I'll let maybe Ken add on, but my impression is typically 7 to 10 dwelling units per acre is under the medium density category, and higher than that is considered high density.
I think the answer is it's very subjective,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
From neighborhood to neighborhood and perception to perception. I would give a different answer than Stephanie, and I'm not saying her answer is wrong, but I would say medium density probably goes up to 20 units an acre, and above that's high density. But it's a term of art.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of chatter in the back, and I'm having a hard time hearing staff. Thank you.
So it's definitely a term of art.
Okay, great, thank you. My next question is, for this type of development, and this question's for the developer, is there a plan to have this, have an HOA or a metro district?
No, actually, I'm really glad you asked that question because this goes back towards, I think my goal is about creating entry places on the housing ladder for folks. So what's really beautiful, I think, about the townhome format is that it can be lot and block. And you know, our intention would be to create lot and block so that you own, you know, from the ground to the sky. And when that's done, you know, you can basically eliminate HOAs, which I think is a more affordable price point for people. Now, with that said, I think in Wheat Ridge there are some specific items, some common area items that, like snow removal, for instance, that would have to be communally taken care of. And so that, you know, we'll have to ultimately put ourselves to your regulation on that. But again, our intention is to create a product that's a single-family product where you own your house and you don't have, you know, you have as little common charges as possible to make it more affordable. But of course, I think there are items that will require communal cooperation, I think, per kind of Wheat Ridge, and we'll, of course, you know, accede to those items.
Okay, and then my last question, back to staff, sorry, I should have streamlined my staff questions. Someone had brought up in their comments concerns about this being slot homes. Are slot homes allowed in Wheat Ridge?
So slot homes are not permitted in Wheat Ridge. The way you usually envision slot homes is very flat-faced. So it's basically like if you turned the fiveplexes that are in the back all the way to the front and created a total flat wall. So we have additional regulations now that require articulation, so different changes in depth of the building, and that's why you see the two duplexes fronting the street also.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilor Ohm?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with the easy one. Just to confirm, these are not condos, these are townhomes, correct?
That's correct, townhomes.
And then, how tall could a restricted commercial building be?
50 feet tall.
50 feet, okay. And currently, the residential height is restricted to 35?
That's correct.
And then, the entrance, is that proposed 2 lanes wide?
Yeah. Two-way drive.
Yeah, two-way drive.
All directions, yeah.
Was there any consideration for like a right-in, right-out from traffic?
I'm going to defer to Rocky on this one, but no. I don't think so.
And if you would please introduce yourself and give us an address.
Rocky McSalta. My address for home is 3136 West 22nd Avenue, Denver, Colorado. I'm the city of Wheat Ridge engineer in development. So right in, right out would be something we would consider. We'd have to see a trip generation letter that would come probably with the SDP after this, and we'd see what those led to. If we go over a certain threshold, and we would look at how their impacts go to the wider street.
Thank you.
I know, I'm sorry,
And
can you,
we
can
can't-
you
we
lift
couldn't
the
hear-
microphone and repeat that for me, please? Sorry.
You need to
As part of the SDP, they'll have to do a trip generation letter for how many trips they generate per day and per hour. With that, we would look at how that impacts the existing street if it goes over a certain threshold.
And then, I don't know if we have a street view that's easily pulled up, but the one question I did have was, are the existing power lines going to be undergrounded along 32nd Avenue?
Yes, they will. That will be a requirement.
Okay, and then the existing bus stop that is referenced but not shown, is that going to remain?
That will remain, yes.
Okay, and then one last question is talking about the detention, because I know there's some questions from constituents about drainage. The staff report stated the area for detention is being shown at the southeast corner of the site where it exists today, but the Pappas architecture letter stated that it was going to be porous pavers or underground detention to be determined.
So again, that's another thing that we would address during specific development plan, but it's looking like it would have to be underground detention to hold the capacity that's needed.
Okay, and then during the, for the SDP process, would staff, I know they have in the past, would they consider putting in a lot sale restriction covenant agreement? I
So
know there was
we do have to do a covenants for the shared things on the site, including the drive, the detention, to do the long-term maintenance of that. In terms of doing a lot sale restriction, so basically a deed restriction on that, I believe that goes above our, what we can require, but I would defer to legal or Ken on that one.
Because I think that was on a previous townhome approval project.
Yeah, so that is a requirement of our subdivision plating, so that the, you can't develop something other than a townhome on a lot that's built for a townhome. The other way that we use the restrictive covenants that you might have seen in your planning commission role, Mr. Ohm, is that we sometimes conditions approval of subdivision plats, that they can't be, for single-family homes as well, that they can't be sold off individually until the subdivision improvement agreement is in place, so that we have security in place to ensure that everything that needs to get built from an infrastructure standpoint gets built. In some cases, someone, a property owner or developer might want to get that entitlement in place, but they don't want to be the developer. And so that's when we use that restrictive covenant that says you can't sell off lots. And then all of a sudden you have, potentially a single family homeowner who doesn't have the improvements they need, like the local streets and all the utilities.
That's exactly what I was.
Excuse me, Mr. Johnstone, would you please introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, Ken Johnstone, Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Councilor Roll.
I have no more questions. Thank you. That's exactly what I was referencing.
Thank you. Councilor Nosler-Beck.
Thanks. I was also just wanting to learn a little bit more about the irrigation and drainage. So, if there would be a detention underneath, would it have potential impacts on the other neighbors, like some of the things that we were hearing tonight about those existing wells, and how would we protect neighbors from that type of thing
Sure.
moving
So
forward?
I don't know if it would help to have Rocky speak. Yeah, probably. Go for it.
So the developer will have to address Mile High Flood District's criteria and non-criteria.
Got to speak into the mic. Sorry, just raise it up there.
I apologize. So the developer will have to do their studies on the drainage and the storm and the soils as part of their analysis, and they'll have to follow the districts, Mile High Flood Districts and our criteria to make sure there are no negative impacts, and they'll have to document that. And so they'll have to retain everything on site, slowly release it off site. And if they're proposing underground detention, that's how it would work.
And when they do that, is that like, because I'm just thinking, it's different when it's snow removal versus, do those types of studies happen at different times of the year with drainage, or does that impact anything, or?
From a bigger picture perspective, it's just about precipitation and the runoff they propose and where they're putting it. And so we'd require that they do not negatively impact our neighbors, regardless of that. And so, but where snow removal goes and those things, it's a little different than the actual drainage runoff, to that perspective.
Where does snow, then I guess that's my other question, is that where does snow removal go then?
We have those, at the end of all three drive aisles, you can see where it terminates. There's a large amount of green space there that we can pile them up there that are 15 feet from the fences, that have plenty of space there to just pile the snow up when it needs to be. And it's Colorado, it melts within a day.
Okay. And then I had another question, just one of the earlier questions, it might have been the first from public comment, was just a question about how we posted for tonight's public hearing. Can staff just explain how things were posted so that we can, address that?
Yeah, so prior to the April 25th public meeting, or public hearing that was supposed to be conducted, it was posted for 15 days, then the legal protests came in, and the property was posted again the day after, basically, so April 26th is when I got confirmation that it was posted. I can't say I drove by today, so I would defer to others on that one, but it is required to be posted up until today.
Okay.
Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilwoman Weaver had something she'd like to say about the posting.
I just wanted to ask about the posting. I was by there today, and there were no posts up. And I don't know if that was due to the wind, but it was concerning. I took pictures of both posts, and there was nothing posted. Is it supposed to be up, or can someone?
It is supposed to be up.
And what happens if it's up, but then by natural circumstances or vandals, it's removed?
I will say that the standard rule is that as long as the staff testifies that yes, the posting was put up, the sign disappears occasionally, that does not undercut the ability to have the hearing. You have to take a reasonable opportunity and effort to put up the sign. It's understood that natural events, various things happen, but if that always disenfranchised you from having a hearing, you'd never be able to have one. You've made a reasonable effort to post and notify owners by mailing as well, and that satisfies the obligation you have to repost.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two more quick questions. So the height is prescribed by our city charter, and it's 35 feet, but then we're putting in the bulk plane. So will that bring the overall height of the building down a little bit below 35 feet, or will it be 35 feet at a certain point on the property?
Yes, so it will bring the height of the building down, ultimately requiring the pitched roofs that you would be seeing. We haven't done a thorough analysis of the specific development plan yet because we haven't received it, but what they did show does meet the bulk plan. They did provide an analysis of that to make sure we could show it to council.
So what you're saying is with pitched roofs, there's not living space all the way up to 35
That's
feet,
correct.
like with a flat roof?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So they can go a little bit taller than, say, 30 feet is probably where the eave hits, and then the additional on top of that.
Great, thanks. And then according to our city charter, the people's document, what is the density allowed in a planned residential development?
It's the maximum of 21 dwelling units per acre.
Thank you. And this one, we're looking at, was it 20 units?
Yeah, it's right at about 20 dwelling units per acre.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few more questions. My first question is, with the reconfiguration going to the 14 units, is there a calculated or estimated average size of the units that would be coming to market? Like finished square foot size?
Roughly about 1,500 square feet, I believe, with the parking garage on the ground level there.
So 1,500 inclusive of the parking area, or 1,500 living square feet?
Probably closer to about 1,200 living, 1,500 total.
Okay, thank you. And can you define conditioned, please?
Like, not the garage.
Okay.
Like where there's air conditioning.
Okay, thank you. And then I think one of the probably most repeated concerns we had tonight was around the parking configuration, and I heard several times referenced that there would be 3 visitor parking spots, but I think I'm seeing 4 in the site plan. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We are showing 4 visitor parking spaces, not 3.
Okay. And is there any precedent, or has it been explored to do an after hours or outside of business hours shared parking agreement with the commercial units to the west?
We haven't pursued that to date. That sounds great. For what it's worth, at one of our previous neighborhood meetings, the woman who owns that shopping center had expressed her support for basically this plan, because it was the informal meeting that we had. So we'd love to talk to her, and I'd be happy to do that, especially to address people's concerns.
Okay, that would be a fantastic option, because that parking lot's pretty empty after 5 o'clock. So, and then my last question is about the landscaping requirements. We heard some concern about, one of the things that makes Wheat Ridge, we're a tree city, and there's a lot of mature trees. Can somebody speak to what the impacts of the development would be on the existing trees, and then what are the requirements and investments in the landscaping that would be coming forward with the development should it move forward?
So I can speak briefly to the city code requirements that would come out of this. They're proposing a 40% landscaping requirement. The existing zoning today is a 20% landscaping requirement. And their intent is to keep all the existing trees except for the ash tree that's on the north side that would have to come down anyway. But in terms of what you're proposing landscaping-wise?
We really love the trees on the property. This was actually like one of the things that Pete has like worked very hard to try to preserve. So I think, you know, when we were originally proposing this, some of the comments we got back was asking us to remove a bunch of the trees in the right of way. And then we've come back and, you know, asked to basically keep those trees and worked with the city to get basically approval to keep those trees. And I'd actually really like that ash in the back too, but because of the ash borer insect, we've been asked to remove that tree. But we would inoculate it if we wanted to, if anyone wants to let us save it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When is this neighborhood up for the NRS? Do you know? Does anybody have that off the top of their head?
You mean let's talk?
Or, sorry, yeah, let's talk, sorry.
Yeah.
Implementing the NRS.
The dividing line for the two neighborhoods in East Wheat Ridge is, I think, actually 32nd Avenue. So I think this area being on the north side was part of the first go-round.
They were a part of the first go-round? Okay. I did not review that, but I am a little concerned, but I'll wait. I'll hold my comments until we're at that point.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you tell me how long of a project you're looking at here to build these?
You're asking about the construction timeline?
Correct.
So I think when we would upon getting permit, I would expect us to be able to complete this within, I would guess, 12 months. That's my best guess.
So main entrance to these townhomes would be where the garage is? That level, first level?
It would be on the first floor level, but the main, everyone has these kind of grassed front yards. So your entrances would be in the kind of a front yard, like a traditional home.
On the other side of where the garage is?
Correct, yep.
Okay, I didn't quite understand the picture. Yeah.
If you're off of West 32nd, you would enter into the unit. That would be where you enter into the unit. On the opposite side, where you enter that drive aisle, there would be the garages on the back of those units facing West 32nd. And as you work down the drive aisle to the north, your garages would be on the east and west side, and then your front yards would be, and unit entrances would be on the opposite side of those garages with front yards, the 15-foot setback from the adjacent properties on the east and west.
Okay.
So I wish we could pull up the picture, but basically that grass side area, it basically serves as a front yard for the homes, and so there's a traditional entrance to the home.
Okay, thank you.
I don't, it's probably not necessary. I think we're good on that. Councilors, before I close the public hearing and ask for motion, are there any other questions of councilors, of the staff or the applicant? Going to close the public hearing. Councilor Hoppe, may I have a motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 022022, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 7585 West 32nd Avenue from restricted commercial RC to planned residential development, PRD, on second reading, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication for the following reasons. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of the rezoning after conducting a proper public hearing. The proposed rezoning has been reviewed by the Community Development Department, which has forwarded its recommendation of approval. And 3, the proposed rezoning has been found to comply with the criteria for review in Section 26-303D of the Code of Laws.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Hulteen. Do I have discussion on the motion? Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that there are traffic concerns with 32nd Avenue, and I would say that a lot of the westbound traffic concerns that we have is concerning because it got worse when RTD quit running its line up 32nd Avenue, which was something that I was really fighting with RTD about. And let's hope, with Clear Creek Crossing coming at the end of 32nd Avenue, the RTD will pick up that part of our community again, especially because a lot of our high school students are being driven down that road. They don't have access by the bus anymore. And I would say that while it does sound, I don't want it to sound cliche, but the reality is, for there to be attainable housing, we have to get comfortable with density. And I get the word density is a really scary, harsh word, but attainable is really important also. We have a lot of people who service our community that cannot live in our community, and that's unfortunate, and they absolutely have also earned the right to live in our community. And so for those reasons, also I would like to say that I appreciate with this planned residential development that staff considered the bulk plane, which would not apply if it stayed RC or would not apply if it was R3. And so that makes the amassing smaller, which is also helpful in kind of the way that it consumes that space. And so I support this. Attainable housing is going to be hard to get in our community. We are a very built-out community. We have very few spaces where we can build these products, but we have a great need, just like the whole state of Colorado has a great need. And so with that, I would just like to say that I'm supporting this plan.
Councilor Nosler-Beck.
I want to just express how difficult the housing situation is for my family and so many of my neighbors and a lot of the folks sitting on this dais as well. And, you know, I don't think we were presented with a good number to really understand what the market value is of these homes right now. I just was up here and did a quick I'm trying to say Zillow, but I'm like saying Google and Zillow at the same time. Zillow search, and for around the same square footage in both a townhome and then also in a home, we were seeing things at almost $700,000 for 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and that is not attainable housing. That's not affordable housing. That is not something that teachers can afford or nurses. I can't afford that. And my point is that the study session that we had last week, this is this is crisis level. We need to have some tools here in Wheat Ridge where we can not just ask developers who are coming into our community to have, you know, affordable housing units in their development, but where we can actually come to the table and make sure that we're providing affordable options for our community. I think that I agree 100% with Councilor Hoppe that we have to improve the stock here, and I do appreciate that this project does not have a cumbersome HOA or Metro District associated with it. And so I'm going to be supporting this evening, but I'm asking all of the counselors and our community to get on board with the conversations that we're having surrounding affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely agree with what Ms. Hoppe and what Ms. Nosler-Beck had said. Unfortunately, I don't think that this is a product at the moment that's going to give us the affordable, attainable housing that we're looking for. It also, I feel like the neighbors tonight came and had very good points. And typically when we have people come and oppose a project, it's kind of the same 5 old reasons and it's the same 10 old people. haven't met most of you, so it's nice to have all of you come tonight and speak. And I thought many of you guys brought up great points as traffic, parking, and for those reasons, I'm going to oppose this project.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Seitz, and thank you for the other comments that have been said. I, too, very much want to forward all of our concerns and get there with affordable housing. I spent some time in my car stalking this property and watching the traffic, and while I very much want a higher density product in this space, 14 feels too big to me with the one exit. And I find that if there was another wet exit, I might support a higher density like that. But for me, I felt like I couldn't go more than 10 on a property like this. So unfortunately, I feel like this could be a great property to put a higher density product. I am not fond of the product that's presented, unfortunately, so I won't be able to support this tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all of my colleagues for providing comment and all of the citizens that came in to speak tonight. Unfortunately, I would have to agree with Council Members Stites and Weaver. This evening, I went ahead and pulled up the Let's Talk East Wheat Ridge, and one of the ranked number 2 is broaden housing options while being sensitive to neighborhood character. I agree wholeheartedly that we need to bring diverse housing into the community, and I think, you know, starting homes, attainability, affordability are all very important conversations. This product would be market rate, and I don't feel that meets the requirement and the conversation that we've been having around affordability. And you know, we had a lot of neighbors come and speak that were in opposition, and I think we are trying to move in a direction where we have a robust public input process, and we want to attract developers into our community that are listening to folks and reacting. And so reading through the packet and seeing that it went from 11 to 14, and after having the conversations that we've had this evening, I think this is too dense for that area. And a majority of the neighborhood opposes it. So I, too, will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When thinking about and evaluating this particular development, I have a couple of criteria that I've been using for where does density belong in our community and where doesn't it belong. And I think it's, you know, like defining what's medium density and what's high density. There's no crisp line for that. But for me, one of the places where I've been increasingly willing and comfortable for density to find its place so that people like Ms. Metz, who, you know, serve our community, can afford to live here is what type of street is it on? And 32nd Avenue is, I believe, a minor arterial classification. It has transit. This isn't a neighborhood street. It's a street that is designed to accommodate cars and in fact has a transit line, sadly, that has had the service cut back. We've had several conversations as a council, and we've heard from our community as a whole that it's important for people who work and learn and play in our community to also be able to call it home. And the only way to get there without us providing, you know, either carrots or sticks is to have some density. And I think the developer's done, you know, a thoughtful job of trying to figure out how to make density work on the site without, you know, pushing the fence lines and being able to push up against the commercial. And in fact, if the architecture of this were to move forward, you know, that it's quality affordable. I've seen a lot of affordable housing projects come forward that aren't bringing this kind of quality and you know, dignity to the people living there. So I will be voting in favor of this. And in part because my other criteria is what's the alternative? And there's 2 alternatives that are currently in play. We can sit here all day long and speculate about what would be a better proposal to come forward. but the current zoning would be denser, would be a higher building, would cover more of the lot. And the other alternative is a vacant lot, and vacant lots aren't great for our city either. So I will be voting in support of this. I'd like to see actually non-deed restricted affordable housing. That's the best kind of affordable housing out there because it allows the purchasers of those properties to actually see the benefit of the market and gain wealth through their investments. On my quick calculation sitting here, the product that the developer is proposing tonight would be for somebody who's making between $45,000 and $50,000 a year. If that's your annual income, there is really nowhere in our city that is easy for you to call home. And there's a lot of people who are our daily neighbors because they work here and serve us. And it's important to me that people who are in that income can move here. I couldn't afford my house today. I bought it 10 years ago and it was $212,000. And I checked it before I came here tonight and it's close to $800,000 now. I wouldn't be able to be sitting on the dais if I didn't live in Wheat Ridge right now. And I want to ensure that we have opportunities for people who want to live here and be part of our community to call it home. So I will be supporting this, and I appreciate that we have a developer who's trying to figure out affordable opportunities that are on corridors that are designed for transit and for people to be moving to and through our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a project that once it gets started will take probably at least a year. We have no idea what the value of real estate is going to be at that time. We're talking affordable. That really is just a word that's out there. My concern is, yes, we need to have housing for people who want to live here and possibly could afford to live here. We need to respect the neighborhoods where these things are also going in. We have people who have lived here a long time who've contributed to this city for what it is now. This city just didn't start with people moving in here like a year ago. So I respect the opinions of people who have lived here, invested in this community, have tried to preserve it. They're interested in safety and, you know, they want secure neighborhoods. So I value when the citizens come out here and voice their opinions, because it is important what is going up in their neighborhoods. They live there. And, you know, they've been there a while, and I'm voting against it. Thank you.
Pardon me, Councilor Ohm, and with Councilor Ohm, all of the councilors will have had an opportunity to speak on the motion. Councilor Ohm?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all the citizens that have come tonight and talked to us. We're listening. And I want to thank the city staff. Thank you for all your efforts of going through this process and the developer. I will be voting yes on this project. And we need more housing. We need diversity in housing at different price points. When I'm looking at this project, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, where is this? Is this, you know, inside one of the citizens commented about maybe they should access the cul-de-sac, and I respectfully disagree. There will be less traffic because this is on a minor arterial. It's in very close proximity to a major arterial, and it does have access to, you know, some open space across the street. You know, and if it was left, you know, and developed as is, you know, as a restricted commercial with a 50-foot tall building, I would think the neighbors would be more upset about, you know, that type of building as opposed to what's going in now. So I will be supporting it, and I've heard a lot of good comments from my fellow council members, and I really respect that. Thank you for that. But we really do need housing in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call for a vote, is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council? Okay, there was a protest on this item that required 6 affirmative votes. There are not 6 affirmative votes. The motion fails. I'd like to take a special moment to thank everyone, the staff, the applicant, all of the citizens who came and spoke on both sides of this issue. I believe we had a robust public hearing. I think the council has heard what you've said, so I want to thank everyone. We're going to stand to...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl has...
Mr. Dahl.
Just as a matter of procedure, you're correct. This particular project required 6 votes to approve, and that motion was not, didn't pass, and so the project has not been approved, but you don't have a denial either. What you have is a failed motion to approve. As I occasionally do when this happens, I ask for members on the prevailing side, which in this case are the members voting no, someone to make a motion to deny so that we are done with the application. Otherwise, you have a motion to approve that did not pass because it needed 6, and you haven't concluded any action on the application, and that's why, of course, the staff reports always have 2 alternative motions. The first one was made but did not get approved, so you're up to, I'd appreciate if the other motion would get made, and we'll see what happens with it.
I'd like to recognize Councilperson Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To make that motion, I move to deny Council Bill number 02-2022, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 7585 West 32nd Avenue from restricted commercial RC to planned residential development, PRD.
And you're welcome to say for the reasons expressed by the council members voting against the project.
For the reasons expressed by the council members voting against the project in the previous vote, and direct the city attorney to prepare a resolution of denial to be scheduled for council consideration at the next available regular business meeting.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilperson Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilperson Bultini, pardon me.
There's too many H's up here. So, Mr. Dahl, I would just have a question about procedurally with this, not that I'm anticipating this issue coming up, but if there were a reconsideration on this, how would that be impacted with the ordinance of denial?
Well, the council has the right to reconsider any action it has taken. So as follows. The motion to approve didn't pass at all, so that was not an action. If this motion passes, even if there's a tie, the mayor, of course, is required to vote in the case of a tie, so the mayor would vote one way or another on this motion. But if a denial motion passes, that's the action of the council. And under the council rules, that action may be reconsidered at this or the next regular meeting by a motion by a member voting on the prevailing side. So the prevailing side, if this motion passes, would be those voting to deny the project. And that comes up occasionally, but that underscores why it's important for me to have a final action by the council on the matter so that you know who's got the right to make a reconsideration motion, if at all, in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Councilor Hoppe?
Does this vote require a supermajority vote also?
It does not, no.
And therefore, if this vote fails, then what is our next step?
Well, if this vote fails, then you've done as much as you can tonight. And having tried both motions, the net result, of course, is the project will not have been approved because we know for sure that to gain an approval, the project absolutely needs 6 votes. So that did not happen. And if the denial motion fails, we don't have a very clean record, for example. We probably for reconsideration, if that's an issue 2 weeks from now, I'd take the position that it's the 6 votes, or excuse me, it's the persons voting against that really prevailed for reconsideration purposes. But we're too far down. I mean, I'm running too many more fact patterns than you need.
So then, but my question is then, so if this fails, then we're not either at an approve or a deny, but the applicant could come back with a different plan, and it would be up to community development to review that plan, is that correct?
Yes.
I believe our code says it has to be significantly different, which
Yeah.
being significantly different could be -1 unit when you have this little of land and this much building. So would that still apply as a significantly different? It's been neither approved nor denied, so they would have to come back, or they had the option to come back. Is that true?
And they always have that option. And I wouldn't speculate tonight on exactly how much of a change would be enough. I mean, that would be something that the community development director would have to look at. And if they applied, again, with a different project, we would have to review that, and then there would be a staff recommendation, and it would go through the process. But I would tell you that whether or not if the denial motion here that's been made fails, then we're done for tonight, because you've taken action on the only two kinds of motions you could act on. And there's really not a door number 3, and I just kind of have to figure out what that means for the record. But it's pretty clear to any reviewing court that you've done everything you can do. And so I'm fine with whatever the results of the denial motion is. We'll be done for this item for tonight.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Will the clerk please poll the council?
It's a tie vote. The mayor is required to vote when there is a tie. Mayor votes yes. The motion to deny passes, and I'll bring that resolution for your consideration next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to stand in for about a 10-minute recess. We'll come back here at 20 minutes to 10. see, we are at May, it's not after midnight, I think we're still at May 10th? Okay. May 9th? Okay. Time's getting ahead of us, me anyway. We will move to agenda item number 2. Councilor Hutchinson, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 06-2022, an ordinance amending Article 8 of Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws to update the city's floodplain maps and to make conforming amendments. At issue, the floodplain maps for Jefferson County have been revised to include updates to the floodplain boundaries within 3 water shields. The only watershed within the Wheat Ridge city limits is for a tributary to Sloan's Lake. Adoption of the most current floodplain maps is required by the National Flood Insurance Program. In addition, staff is seeking, thank you, to make other minor changes to the city's floodplain regulation to add a couple of necessary definitions and clarify the adoption of the official floodplain maps.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. Ms. Hutchinson, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill number 06-2022, an ordinance amending Article 8 of Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws to update the city's floodplain maps and to make conforming amendments. Order it published, public hearing set for May 23rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in City Council's chambers, 7500 West 29th Avenue, if allowed to meet in person on that date per COVID-19 restriction, and that it take effect 15 days final publication.
Second.
Pardon me? We have a motion and a second by Councilor Stites. Would the clerk please poll the council?
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit my microphone button.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. And just for the record, I will state that Councilor Weaver had to be excused. So she is not with us at the present time. That brings us to agenda item number 3. Councilor Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 08-2022, an ordinance adopting a new Article 5 of Chapter 15 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning chronic nuisance properties. On occasion, property owners or persons in charge of such properties have failed to take corrective action to abate certain nuisance conditions on that property. Chronic nuisance properties have a tremendous negative impact upon the quality of life, safety, and health of the neighborhoods where they're located. This ordinance will adopt a new Article 5 of Chapter 15 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to provide additional tools for the police department to address chronic nuisance properties.
Thank you. This is the ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this, Councilor Stites?
Yes, sir. I move to approve Council Bill number 08-2022, an ordinance adopting a new Article 5 of Chapter 15 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning chronic nuisance properties on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, May 23rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in City Council chambers, if allowed to meet in person on that date per COVID-19 restrictions, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Let's see. Councilor Ohm had the second on that one. Will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 4. Councilor Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council Bill number 07-2022, an ordinance adopting a new Article 5 in the Chapter 13 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning vehicular public nuisances. Illegal street racing is a dangerous activity which poses a threat to those citizens using both public and private roadways. Negative impacts of street racing include excessive noise at late hours, taking over public property, dangerous stunts, and road racing that endangers the public as well as the participants and onlookers. The Wheat Ridge community has a low tolerance for this behavior. This proposed ordinance will create more tools for law enforcement to deter street racing.
Thank you. This is a motion, an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this item, please, Councilor Stites?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 07-2022, an ordinance adopting the new Article 5 of Chapter 13 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning vehicular public nuisances on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, May 23rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in City Council chambers if allowed to meet in person on that date per COVID-19 restrictions, and then it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Hutchinson. Would the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 5. Councilor Nosler-Beck, would you please introduce this?
Thanks, Mayor. Motion to approve appointment of representatives to the 2023 Community Partners Grant Program Committee. I'm going to just now read through the appointments. Does that make sense? Or do I need to read the ad issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
District 1, Jerry DeTulio. Second appointment there is for District 1 is Brooke Allison.
Actually, no, I think
It's just those two that we're appointing tonight.
Oh, that's it?
Yes.
Okay. So District 1, Jerry DeTulio and Brooke Allison are both new appointments.
Second.
So I move to appoint Jerry DeTulio and Brooke Allison to the 2023 Community Partners Grant Program Committee, District 1, term to expire after 2024 budget recommendations are presented in 2023.
Second.
all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Or
Aye.
by, no. I'm sorry, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Councilor Hulteen, would you please make the motion for the District 2 appointments? Or is that the only ones we have?
Just those two this evening.
Oh,
yes.
okay. All right, thank you. We'll go to agenda item number 6. This is the agenda item number 6. There are currently 4 vacancies on various boards and commissions within the city of Wheat Ridge. We have some from District 2. Councilor Hulteen, would you please make motions for the seats that are available for District 2?
I have a question before I do so.
Okay.
I actually was not even aware of the opening in my district, and I'm just wondering when it was posted and how long people had to apply for it. And specifically the Cultural Commission. I knew about the Board of Adjustment, but I was not aware of the Cultural Commission opening in my district until the Patrick.
The application,
packet.
oh, that's the wrong, let me see. It's not in the staff report. Yeah, I don't see, sorry. I'm sorry, I don't know how long they were advertised.
I don't believe it was very long because Millie, I think, stepped down on like the 15th or something.
They submitted, we received applications as early as February 27th, so it looks like it's been open for a while. I think they just closed like a week ago.
For the Cultural Commission?
All of them were open, yeah. They were advertised for all of them. I don't know, Robin, do you remember advertising those for us?
Yes, they were advertised twice in the transcript with quarter-page ads, as well as being put on Facebook, the city website, and Channel 8. So they're duly advertised.
Okay, just because Millie didn't step off the Cultural Commission until the 15th of April.
We added her to the second ad put out in the transcript.
Okay, I'm concerned that 2 weeks isn't a very long time to get the word out about a position. I mean, it's nice that we have a good person, but I'm just, 2 weeks is, other positions had a long time. And so,
I don't know, was it 2 weeks? Did you confirm it was just 2 weeks? Or two? It ran in the papers twice. I think it was longer than 2 weeks, but
Okay.
I can't confirm that this evening.
okay. Okay, I guess then, I'm just going to say, I knew about the other ones. I didn't know about the Cultural Commission until 2 weeks ago, or until the 15th. So, okay, I move to appoint Stephanie Taylor in District 2 to the Cultural Commission for a term to expire in March of 2023.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-0.
That's it for District 2.
Would you like to have the James Amundsen?
But that's a District 1 appointment. It's a District 2
Okay.
applicant, but it's a
Councilperson
District 1.
Hoppy, would you like to do item number 3?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Because we had no District 1 applicants for the Liquor License Authority Board, and because I know they just went through a lot of rigmarole to move people from seated in districts that were not actually their district, I would like to reopen that position so we can actually find someone from District 1 to seat there rather than appoint from outside of the district. So I make a motion that we reopen the
Advertisement.
for the advertisement for the vacancy on the Liquor License Authority Board for District 1.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to reopen the advertisement. Any discussion on the motion? Will the clerk please poll the council?
That motion carries 7-0.
Councilperson Dozman, would you please introduce item number 4?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to appoint Andrew Rasmussen to the Parks and Recreation Commission vacancy in District 4, term to expire 3/2/2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Councilperson Nosler Beck. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we'll go to agenda item number 7. Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 23, 2022, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $20,000 for the purpose of accepting a donation from Intermountain Healthcare for the City of Wheat Ridge and Jefferson County homeless navigation programs. At issue, Intermountain Healthcare has provided a $20,000 donation to the City of Wheat Ridge. The purpose of this donation is to support the City of Wheat Ridge and the Jefferson County homeless navigation programs and assisting those experiencing a housing crisis to find stable housing and obtain the services and resources needed to maintain that housing. This resolution is to approve a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $20,000 to accept the donation and appropriate the funding.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Only if there's questions from council.
Okay, we will, before we go to questions from council, open this up to the public. If there's anyone here, I have no one signed up to speak on this, but if you're here and would like to speak, you may do so now. If you're online, please raise your hand, and we'll bring you into the meeting. And I don't see anybody with their hands raised or coming forward, so we'll close that portion and go to any questions from council. No questions from council, so we will ask Mr. Ohm to provide us a motion on this.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 23-2022, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $20,000 for the purpose of accepting a donation from the Intermountain Healthcare for the City of Wheat Ridge and Jefferson County homeless navigation programs.
Second.
A motion second by Councilor Stites. Is the discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. That takes us through our regular agenda item. We will now go to City Manager's Matters. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, just a reminder for council. Hopefully you got the invitation. Leadership Jeffco Local Government Day is this Friday, and the mayor and council members are invited for lunch with this year's class. It'll be at 11:30 in the community room at the Lakewood Cultural Center. The mayor will be presenting also at breakfast at the Wheat Ridge Rec Center, but council members are invited to come to lunch in Lakewood. So if you need information about that, let us know. Thanks.
Okay, City Attorney's Matters. Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Elected Officials Matters. Start with Councilwoman Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have this written, and I'm just going to read it because there's too much stuff going on.
Please speak directly into the microphone.
Okay. In 1993, National Nurses Week began, and it was from May 6th to May 12th, but this year it changed. So now we have a National Nurses Month, which is May. And so this is a profession that the people give 150%. And since the last 2 years have evolved, there's going to be a huge need for more nurses. So I just thought that I would add the month of May for recognition for nurses, along with all the others that we have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Nosler-Beck.
Thanks, Mayor. Patrick, maybe Mary Ann, I had a constituent reach out who is a recent homeowner in the new development up by the light rail station, and the development is having an issue with receiving mail because of a connectivity issue between Arvada, like a road that's an Arvada road versus a Wheat Ridge road, and so they're having to drive to the post office on Saturdays and pick up their mail for the week. I guess they talked to a planner of the day. They didn't remember the name of the person that they spoke to. They're just trying to get to a resolution on what we can do. So I'll be following up with you all on that. But
Hey, do you have an email you could, with information?
Yeah, I do have an email.
Voice call, voicemail, email?
I have both.
Okay,
so
yeah, if you
I'll
could
get
send
those
that,
two.
we could check into it.
Yeah,
and see what's going on.
according to the resident, I can't remember the number. It's like the station 40. Is it the Wonderland Homes or?
There's Toll Brothers home. Oh, the Wonderland Townhomes.
Yeah.
Townhomes. Yep.
Yep, and there's about 40 residents who aren't able to get their mail. So.
I don't know what construction is going. We haven't started any
Well,
road
it's not
construction.
construction, and just to kind of
Yeah.
explain the issue a little bit further, it's that the post office won't go into the Arvada, like, district, like, across their city lines, because it's a different zip code. So it's just where our District 4, jig-jags back and forth like that. So anyway, we can talk about it some more.
Okay.
Councilor Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got another great business coming to District 3. There's a ribbon cutting for Mike's Camera coming up on Thursday, May 12th at 9:30 in the morning. So if anybody can make that, that'll be awesome. And I think that'll kind of fill up the Applewood Shopping Center again, which is awesome. And other than that, if you can find it, buy in Wheat Ridge. We can use the tax money.
Thank you. Councilor Dozeman.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rome.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Jim over at DBC Irrigation. I had to work on some irrigation in my yard, and he was really helpful. So if anybody needs some irrigation expertise, go to DBC Irrigation off of Youngfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple things. You guys may have noticed that Wadsworth is under construction. And so there's been some pretty significant shifts in traffic. And I will say, all things considered, it's going incredibly smoothly. And the communication's been great from the city, but I just advise everybody, give yourself a little more time to get through there. It's pretty tight, and it's going to be like that for a while, but all things considered, I have to say it's going pretty well. I've noticed backup on 44th. I'm looking at my co-counselor. So just, I guess I'm speaking to this room, but just be mindful of not shortcutting through neighborhoods. And I know the city's kind of keeping their eye on that. And I know Councilor Ohm and I will certainly raise any alarms if we're seeing excessive cut-through traffic. But I do think the project's going pretty well. But even more fun projects are the planning of the West 35th Avenue walking and biking project. And the online survey is still open through the 20th, and it's just really important for people who use that corridor for walking, biking, rolling through there. Please provide some feedback and input. And then the Wheat Ridge ADATs are doing some bike and pedestrian counting over the next 10 days or so, and are seeking volunteers who will get a little gift card for their time to, sit out on the corner for a couple hours and observe what's going on, make notes of it. I've done this quite a bit. It's actually a really fun way to get to know your community, to sit on one corner for 2 hours and observe what happens. So I just would love for them to get the volunteers they need to get the data so the city kind of knows who's using that corridor. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. I'd be happy to forward the email calling for volunteers, and you'll find me out there on Sunday counting. So please ride your bike by, and I will count you as one. Unless there's two of you, and then I will count you as two. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I would like to recognize the passing of a longtime Wheat Ridge resident, Ralph Mancinelli, was very active in our community. He served 10 years on the Wheat Ridge Water District Board of Directors. He was 20 years with the Loan Committee at Jefferson County Housing Authority, and he spent 2 terms from 1997 to 2003 as a city councilor, and we appreciate all the service he gave to our community, and we send our condolences to the family. I want to thank all of the folks who came tonight to our public hearing, particularly to talk about issues that are of concern to him. It's important for our citizens to express their opinions directly to their lawmakers here on council. We appreciate it. We hope that we have a robust hearing and everyone got a chance to be heard and we're able to make the process happen. So it's getting good weather out there. We've got the kids riding bikes and playing with their balls. Periodically those go in the street, and I certainly hope everyone will drive carefully and slowly through our town so that we continue to have a great, safe place to live, work, and play in our community. If there's no more business to come before our meeting tonight, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.